Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Labor for Life. This is your host, Dr. Gauderi Rodriguez Cambry. This is your podcast for all things work, unions, and the economy from a pro-life perspective. Today, we're going to be talking about the comments made by US Representative Jasmine Crockett. If you do not know what comments I'm referring to, stay tuned. I will tell you very shortly. In addition to her comments, we are going to be talking about how those comments actually connect with the Democrats' party vision and their history of being the party of slavery. So let's start by asking the question, who is Jasmine Crockett? Crockett is the United States Representative for Texas since January 2023. So she is a junior representative. She's African American, and she's trying to become a Democrat superstar. Right now, the Democrat Party is at its lowest approval rating, really ever. And different people are trying to, let's say, cast a light on the darkness. They're trying to be the party's savior. Actually, we have another representative from Congress and Democrat, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who joined forces with Bernie Sanders. And the two of them are going around in different meetings and different rallies trying to project themselves as the next Democrat presidential ticket. So this is what they're trying to do. And Jasmine Crockett is trying to essentially put herself in the conversation. Put herself in the conversation of a leader, of someone who can guide the Democrat Party out of the disaster that it's finding itself right now. So let's go over what Jasmine Crockett said. On Sunday, April 6, 2025, as a guest at the 125th anniversary of Grace Baptist Church in Connecticut, this is a historically black church, she said she needed to educate people about, quote, what immigrants do for this country, end quote. So, according to Crockett, she has to educate people. In this case, she's talking to a black audience, so presumably she wants to educate black people in particular, but more broadly, Americans in general, about what immigrants do for this country. Never mind that there's no reason to remind anybody about what immigrants do for this country. But she thinks that she does because she's not talking about any immigrants. We have to understand that she's talking about illegal immigration. That's what she's alluding to. And so according to her, this is what she has to educate people about. She says the following two things. We're done picking cotton. And then she says, you can't pay us enough to find a plantation. So here we have US Representative Jasmine Crockett saying, we're done picking cotton, you can't pay us enough to find a plantation. So what she's trying to do is being funny to a black audience and telling the black audience, listen, we did the slavery thing before, right? Because picking cotton and finding a plantation, that's slavery language. So she's saying, as black people, we're done being slaves. But we need to find people. We need to substitute the slave position. It's not black people anymore. So fortunately, there's these other people called illegal immigrants that can do the job. And essentially, that's what she's arguing, that it's what immigrants do for this country, right? The illegals are the new slaves. And we need to support illegal immigration and fight for illegal immigrants because, they're just the new slaves. Of course, that this argument is absolutely not just ridiculous, but it's totally outrageous. And the idea to enslave illegals, essentially abuse people who are vulnerable because they have no papers, harvest them for political gain, it's totally outrageous. Totally outrageous. And it's mind-boggling that a US representative, somebody in Congress, in our US Congress, can actually make this argument as if it was okay. As if it was okay to say that there's people, any kind of people, that should be slave. That is outrageous in and of itself. But then to defend that position, people that are in vulnerable positions, we need them, she says. Well, let's be clear that the reason that she wants illegals in this country, Jasmine Crockett, and she's defending illegal immigration, is not really simply because, she wants illegals to pick cotton, but it's because the Democrats have a very strong scheme of using illegal immigration in connection with voter fraud. Let's not forget that Vice President Harris, in the 2024 election, she won every state that did not have voter identification. And also, many of the left-leaning states, think California and New York, are the largest recipient of illegals. So if you put these two things together, that many of the left states have large recipient of illegals, and also that Harris won every state without voter ID, you can see that a connection is going to emerge. They are using illegal immigrants to harvest votes. And so indeed, these illegal immigrants are sort of like slaves because they are here, they're not supposed to be here, and essentially because they don't have proper documentation, they can be used any way that the Democrat Party feels that they can be used, and they do get used. In fact, the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, which is currently headed by Elon Musk, has found that illegals voted in the 2024 election. They found evidence of that. So this is something that is happening. Therefore, we need to understand that when she says, Jasmine Crockett, that illegals, immigrants, should be used because we're done picking cotton, she is not just saying a metaphor. She's talking about the reality that the Democrat Party is experiencing. They have been using these people, and they want to continue to use them and abuse them. These comments by Jasmine Crockett have not been analyzed or condemned by the media, which adds to the insult to injury. That's what it does. It adds insult to injury because it's supposed to be covered everywhere. This outrageous comment, but the media is silent. Totally silent. In fact, most of the media didn't cover it. They glozed over some of them, but they didn't really cover these comments. And the Spanish media, which follows a lot the information on illegal immigrants, because many of these immigrants are from Latin America, and the Spanish media is always trying to essentially blame President Trump and look for any opportunity to cast him in a bad light. They have not covered these comments by Jasmine Crockett, which if any Republican who had said anything remotely similar to saying that, illegal immigrants are our new slaves, right? They're here because we need people that pick cotton, the Spanish media will be totally upset by it. But because it was a Democrat, everybody gives her a pass. I want to now cover the fact that this position that Jasmine Crockett has and how she openly connects illegal immigrants with slavery, this is not a coincidence. This doesn't just happen. This is the stance of the Democrat Party, because let's not forget, the Democrat Party is the party of slavery. They defended slavery in the Civil War, and post-Civil War, they opposed civil rights legislation. In fact, the Democrats used the filibuster power in the Senate to oppose civil rights legislation. They have a long history of being against the interests of minorities in this country. Connected to that is the fact that Margaret Sanger, who was an eugenicist and the founder of Planned Parenthood, she herself spoke about how it's necessary to use black leaders, recruit black leaders in the eugenicist movement, recruit them into the movement to go against the interests of the communities of color. And this, my friend, is exactly what has been accomplished by the Democrat Party. Mission accomplished. They have recruited people of color to go against the interests of their own communities. It has been done. It is already a reality. This is why we have a representative like Jasmine Crockett, who is African American, going into a black church saying that we need to support immigration because, we need new slaves. It's because this plan that Margaret Sanger had, the Democratic Party made it its own. And it's not on the works, it's already happening. It's been happening. Furthermore, let's go back to Jasmine Crockett and another comment that she made, this time on regards to Kilmer Abrego Garcia. Kilmer Abrego Garcia has been on the news because he is an illegal who was found by two different courts to be part of the MS-13 gang, which is a very violent gang from El Salvador, and he was ordered to be deported. He was ordered to be deported back. Now, the second court, when he was ordered to be deported, Kilmer Abreu Garcia argued, well, don't send me to El Salvador because a rival gang will kill me. So he admitted to be a member of a gang. He was arguing, well, don't send me to El Salvador because my rival gang will kill me. And that court said, okay, you can be deported anywhere but El Salvador, at least for now. Coming the Trump administration, and the Trump administration is fulfilling what they promised to the voters, to send all of these illegals, criminals that came in under Joe Biden to be sent back. We voted for that. So they are fulfilling their promise, and Kilmer Abreu Garcia, he had a deportation order, he was sent back. Now, the Democrats came out in support of Abrego Garcia because they say, oh, he shouldn't have been deported to El Salvador. But that is a ridiculous argument. Of course he needed to be deported because he is a gang member and he's illegally in this country. And anyway, the argument that he made to the court, oh, I won't be safe in El Salvador, that doesn't even hold anymore because El Salvador is one of the safest countries in the world. So, of course he can be sent there because he's as safe there as he will be here because El Salvador is one of the safest countries in the world. But the Democrats are still obsessed with defending this man. In fact, Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen, another Democrat, he flew to El Salvador to meet with Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Never mind that, right? In Maryland, he had a real constituent, Rachel Morin, who was killed by an illegal rape and kill. And Senator Chris Van Hollen had no time to meet with her family or call her family. Nothing at all. But he has time to fly to El Salvador to meet with an illegal person who belongs to El Salvador. That's his home country. So what Democrats are doing is simply incredible. This is not believable that it is happening. How extremist these people are. Well, Jasmine Crockett, on April 20, 2025, on MSNBC, defending Kilmar Abrego Garcia, said the following: as far as I'm concerned, he's a lot less criminal than the person that's sitting in the White House. Because last time I checked, he doesn't have any criminal convictions. This is a totally ridiculous argument that Jasmine Crockett is making. First of all, why are you going to say that someone that is an illegal and is a member of a violent gang like MS-13 and beat his wife, because that came out too, that he had beaten his wife right here in America, why would you say that he doesn't have any criminal convictions? What does criminal conviction have to do with anything? He is a criminal. But further than that, President Trump, he won the electoral vote and the popular vote. And he won it clean. And the convictions that he has, that President Trump has, they're all from the sham trial in New York. And in that sham trial, evidence was suppressed. And the judge in that trial did everything to lead the jury to the outcome that it had. Everything, which is unethical. Totally unethical and unethical and against the law what this judge did. If it had been Florida, he couldn't have done that. He did that in New York, but here in Florida, he could not do that. Because here they will take you out of the bench if you're that openly unethical. But anyway, Jasmine Crockett and the Democrats, they know this. They know all of this. But they still want to defend these criminal illegals because of what she said 2 weeks before that. Oh, if they're not in the country, who's going to pick the cotton? Who's going to be in the plantation? Yeah, they need the illegals to be here. Not simply to pick the cotton or be on the plantation. The plantation is the harvesting of votes that's happening. That's the plantation. And that's what they need them for. So look at the situation. On the one hand, you have the Democrats who say, oh yes, we want illegals in this country. We want them for election fraud. We can use them and abuse them for our purposes. In contrast that with President Trump. President Trump's message to the illegals is, we don't want to use you. We just want you to go back to your country. That's it. But according to the media, the compassionate stance is the stance of the Democrats. Because, using people to pick a cotton and harvest their votes, that is so compassionate. Now I want to talk about how all of this conversation and issues that we have analyzed impact our pro-life work. First of all, as pro-lifers, we have to reject slavery analogies wherever we see them. So these comments by Jasmine Crockett that, we need, immigrants, illegals, to pick cotton, to be at the plantation. We need to reject this viewpoint. And we also have to remind ourselves that slavery is very much connected to abortion. In fact, during slavery, the main argument was that people of African descent are not human beings. Well, it's the same argument about abortion. Children that are in their mother's womb are not human beings. It's the same argument. But the Democrats will try every single time to say, no, that's not the way it is. In fact, Vice President Kamala Harris gave a speech. She gave a speech about how, yes, there is a connection between slavery and abortion, but the connection is this, that the slaves were liberated from slavery. And in abortion, women are liberated by killing their babies. No, that's not liberation. That's not liberation. Vice President Harris is not, and in their words. And this is what they do. They lie. Because that's not the connection between slavery and abortion. The connection is that every time we're saying that human beings are not human beings. And there's nothing that Harris or Crockett or anybody else can do to take away the fact that that's the truth. Human beings have unique human dignity, and their lives deserve to be fight for if they're innocent. And children are always innocent. So, just like with the issue of slavery, just like with the issue of abortion, Jasmine Crockett and the Democrats, they are obsessed with all of these images about death, about slavery, about communism. They're obsessed with this viewpoint, this perspective. As far as I know, no Democrats have condemned the comments of Jasmine Crockett. As far as I know, the media hasn't really covered these terrible comments. But we are doing it here. And we want to remind the world that there's plenty of people who can see through the nonsense and are going to call it what it is. I thank you for joining us on this episode. As a reminder, we do this podcast every week, but we alternate between English and Spanish. So next week is going to be in Spanish. If you want the English episode, the next one is going to be in 2 weeks. We are grateful that you joined us today, and see you next time.